So this couldn't be a more timely panel, as you'll hear these two gentlemen talk about the pandemic impacts, how we thought we were crawling out of it, and maybe now we're in a bit of a setback. But it's a great pleasure to have Marshall Weston, President of the Restaurant Association of Maryland, with us, and Tom Perlazzo, Tourism Economic Development for our great town to the east of us, Ocean City. So we'll start with Marshall.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. If you have not been paying attention, there you go. If you haven't been paying attention, then you would probably be one of the people that would come to me and say, how has the pandemic impacted your industry? Right? Okay, and I don't talk about that anymore. I'm done with it. And that's why I agreed to be here today, because we're looking forward, right? We all know that restaurants and tourism and hospitality as a whole, we're one of the most severely impacted industries out there. And we get that. But it doesn't help us at this point in time to kind of dwell on the past, but there are certainly some things we're going to learn from the past, right? Because they are going to affect how restaurants are able to operate in the future. So just as a kind of a quick story here, I was sitting in another panel like this, and a moderator asked me about, so how did restaurants deal with COVID once it was put on them? You know, basically the question was, what was their crisis management plan? And I see Melanie out there, so forgive me, you're going to hear this story twice, but and at that point in time, no one had asked me that question. So I gave him the answer that went just like this. Now this is to you guys, if you've worked in the restaurant industry or tourism or hospitality, but specifically restaurants, raise your hand. At any point in your life, wow, see, look how many of us have been there. Then every single one of you know that every day in a restaurant is a crisis situation, right? This is what restaurants do. The dishwasher breaks. The heat in the back dining room doesn't work. Someone doesn't show up. Someone decided that, oh my gosh, Salisbury's homecoming is tonight. I can't work. What do we do? You know, these kind of things. So restaurants are the entrepreneurs in this country that are very adaptable. They go with the flow. They can make things happen quickly. They're not bogged down in the process that, like in my office or your office or anywhere else. They just make things happen, right? So it wasn't really much the crisis aspect of it that affected restaurants. It was the inconsistency that they were dealing with day in and day out. The message of things always changing and this and that. So that's really where we learned a lot of lessons, and we're kind of concerned about things moving forward. But I'll talk about those things in a little bit, but I'm going to defer to Tom just to kind of give an opening remark, I guess, or say what you want to say.
Well, I will say that the first thing I said to Marshall was, I'm just going to defer to you. You're the restaurant guy. I'm here talking about tourism, and it's funny you mentioned crisis and how we handle things, and in the restaurant industry, well, the tourism is no different. We'll talk about Melanie again, but no, basically, every day is something new in the tourism industry. You have to be on top of your game if you want to make a difference, and that's probably one of my worst assets is I do want to make a difference. But in doing that, I think the industry itself is bold and needs to be bold moving forward. As many of you in here, it's been very painful the year and a half so far with the pandemic, and it's required tourism to do a reset on how and what and who we talk to and engage, things with, our destination or our hotel or our restaurant, et cetera. So it's become more of destination marketing's turned more into destination management. And again, that travel journey is really important. I mean, from the discovery phase to the research phase, to right on down to commit, plan, experience, and hopefully rebook your destination. So In Ocean City, some real live experiences, I'll be able to express that as we move forward. I think that since my start date of June 1st, it's been a track meet because we do want to make a difference in 22 and beyond. And I'll tell you how we're doing that and what we're doing. And I can go through a series of slides once Marshall gets done.
Okay. So everybody wants to know what does restaurants and what's the industry look like moving forward? So there's some things that are not going to surprise you, and then maybe a few things that might. First, sitting here today, we have extreme labor shortage issues, and in order for a restaurant to make money and to be able to be there year after year, they have to have a full restaurant. That's the way they're built. They are built with 4 walls, and they've got it figured out that, okay, we're not going to be real busy on Tuesday afternoon, we get it, but we've got to be able to be full at certain times of the day, every day of the week, and certainly on the weekends. And right now, we don't have enough capacity in terms of employees to fill our restaurants. Now, the consumer demand is there. Every one of us in this room, we're still going out to eat. We still would probably go out to eat a little bit more than we are now if we felt the overall atmosphere here was a little better, but that's kind of the up and down nature that we're still dealing with. But what should not be surprising is that although we as an industry have a labor shortage, if you look around, we're not the only one. I read about bankers who are making $100,000 a year that say, screw this, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And there are people that think that our industry is, I don't like this term, but I heard someone else use it, and I would, from afar, otherwise I would have approached them. But we just deal with kind of the bottom feeders. And that is such a ridiculous statement, because how many people raised your hand? I'm pretty sure we're not bottom feeders here. I am the kid who started in a restaurant when I was 16 years old, worked my way up to the general manager by the time I was 21, and lo and behold, went back to school, did some more things, continued to manage restaurants, and now I get to sit in this chair next to Tom. I think I've done pretty darn well. And I don't think our industry gets enough credit for providing people the flexibility and basically a pathway to move onto what you want to do later. I thought I was always going to be a restaurant guy. Eventually, I moved out of it. But I tell you what, everything I learned in a restaurant, I use today. I can deal with people a lot better than I see my children. I deal with people better than my children. When they were young, I make them work in a restaurant, just so everyone knows. Every one of my kids have worked at a restaurant at some point. But there are a lot of skills to be had in our industry. We provide a lot of flexibility. But even with that being said, we're dealing with just not enough people right now. So that's something that we as an association, we as an industry are really looking to address, so that we better tell the story of what it's like to be in our industry. Yes, it's hard work, but there's flexibility. There is the idea that you don't have to sit behind a desk, which many people do not want, and it allows you to build the skills necessary to become great at our jobs later on in life. And hey, you might even own a restaurant or manage a chain or something along those lines down the road too. The second is the cost of everything is going up, and I mean everything. From a restaurant's perspective, there is not an item that comes through the door that does not have an increase in price than what it was a month ago. And it's really affecting our industry because restaurants are very hesitant to pass along every bit of cost along to the consumer. I mean, the reality is we cannot, with a straight face, charge $21.95 for a hamburger and French fries. But I'm telling you, it's not that far off in some places, just because we're just feeling the squeeze in terms of pricing. But to even go, to make the matters worse, we sometimes are not even getting the items that we order. And that really puts it all into everything just in such chaos, is that you order 10 cases of this and only 3 show up on Friday. What are you supposed to do? So now we don't have enough employees, we don't have all the product that we need to meet consumer demand, and it's costing us significantly more. All of that put together should be pretty obvious to everyone that restaurants, you might think they're busy and they've come out of the pandemic, but they're not. They're not making money. They're hanging on. We're all hanging on for the better day down the road where we can catch up and make up for what this COVID pandemic has done for us. And, that's okay. Restaurants, they understand that. They can deal with those kind of things. But it is a reality that does make it very tough day in and day out when you're dealing with this inconsistent nature. That just makes it tough to run any business, but especially in a restaurant because they do like to plan. So what does all that mean for the future? Once we get beyond all that, here's the good news. I think that we've, as a society, learned that my favorite restaurant, maybe they didn't offer carry-out before the pandemic, but boy, they figured out a way to do it now, haven't they? And they've had 2 years to work on it to do it right. So, we all are familiar with having pizza delivered, maybe our favorite Asian restaurant, Chinese restaurant, getting takeout there, and sub shops and other places in our neighborhood. But I will admit, I never thought Texas Roadhouse was going to be the place where people were going to go and get takeout. And if you haven't been to a Texas Roadhouse and looked at their takeout operation, you are missing out. It is almost as good as what Chick-fil-A has done when they decided they were going to put 2 drive-through lanes in, and how they make that work, it's still a mystery to us restaurant people today. But they figured out a way to get more people through, and they still have the quality and all these different things. So this is restaurant ingenuity, right? So Texas Roadhouse figured out how to do it. Me, if I'm going to get a steak, I figure, well, I'll cook it at home. Why would I do that? But I was wrong. Texas Roadhouse put out a good product, and many other places have figured out the carry-out thing. So today, we don't necessarily have to go out to eat in order to support restaurants, right? So I think carry-out's a big thing. Technology is another big thing. So many places are now using apps and this and that and the other thing. So it's one of those things where now restaurants are doing things not by choice, but they were kind of nudged into it, and now we as a society expect them to deliver. So that's what the future is going to be. I think the restaurants are going to have to deliver on these new expectations that all of us in society have.
Okay. Just like I said, whatever he says. No, but from the tourism perspective, I think there's a little clicker up here. But look, I wanted to tell you, Ocean City's going through some changes, as I mentioned, and travel recovery is important to Ocean City. Obviously, tourism equals economics. And our restaurants, just like we know we have the challenges of workforce. We know we've got great folks from within our industry, the Greater Chamber of Commerce in Ocean City, HMRA. We're all on the same page. But I just wanted to give you some snippets so that you could take back and understand how this industry is going to change. And I'll be honest with you, I've been working in tourism for 20 years in different aspects, mainly golf, but I got to work with some of the best ad agencies, the biggest resorts up and down the coast and in the Caribbean. It was a pleasure. This time of year, I wish I was back in the Caribbean. But to give you an example of some things that you may or may not know, during the course of an agency review, we heard from the Maryland Mariner, who's the state agency, and they made 2 interesting points that I wanted to share with you. One, 60% of all the travelers to Maryland were looking for water and seafood. So I thought, wow, that's pretty good. And 1/3 of those folks that came to Maryland, new folks, were actually visitors to Ocean City or various destinations on the shore. One thing we know is that, we know that travel is going to be inspiring and it's going to be a fresh path forward for ourselves and our communities and the environment. It's going to be a crowded marketplace, very competitive. Messaging and content are going to be more important than ever. And, basically it's a behavioral change or an emotional connection. And, I kind of likened this story. If anybody's seen Jerry Maguire, anybody see that movie? Well, I'm a sports guy. I thought it was a sports movie, but I found out that it was a love story. So, the messaging out there is going to be vital as we move forward. And I think the travel perceptions, again, we know that people are eager to travel. They're more determined. They're more confident. The lifestyles, the age, the experiences, et cetera, are going to be extremely important. And what I mean by that is, look, Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Y, millennials, baby boomers, all have different messaging. And in Ocean City, we've typically blanketed the market with one message, trying to connect with all the different markets with one shot. That can't happen moving forward. During the reset, it's going to require us to develop new markets to be successful. We're going to need more millennials. The Gen Zs, the kids, they're influencing more travel than ever before. We need to be able to communicate them and engage them in positive messaging about the Eastern Shore in our area. I wanted to give you a couple little quick things just as from VRBO so that you got a good idea. And there's thousands of this pieces of information out there that you can draw from, but it's pretty relevant. 65% of all travelers plan traveling more than they did prior to the pandemic. It's an opportunity. 33% are willing to spend more. Another opportunity. Marshall was talking about.
Good thing.
So you come to Ocean City Air Show weekend, the $200 room night's $900, and you're wondering what the heck is happening here. 54% revealed that 2021 will be their bucket list year. They're going to make a bucket list. Okay, it's been stressful for them. They're trying to figure out what, when, and where to go. And I'll use this as an example, which you might see a little bit later. Baby boomers are looking to reconnect. They're looking to engage their families more, and where and how to do that is, even more present in everything we do day in and day out. You see it on TV. It's there. We just don't know how to connect with that at the moment. So in Ocean City, when I move on to this, I know there's a lot of words here, but, it basically boiled down into creating a new strategy. And, we talk strategic plan, but it required us to get boots on the ground, which we're going to hire, an internal marketing team as we speak. It means we need to create a brand that can last decades, which we've never had a brand. In 20 plus years, we've done everything by campaign. We needed to find out what people thought about Ocean City that traveled here and vacation, but more importantly, the folks that don't come here and why. So there's a perception study plan that was kind of linked in there. And then we needed to really take an internal look and measure via research how and who and what. So, I'm going to mention a couple of these things, and they're not paying me, but, we talked workforce as an example. Well, we have a program now that we're kind of looking at and trying to figure out how to look at colleges and universities, high schoolers, looking at their breaks. This is what's at our access to be able to do this. In Ocean City, J1s are an important part, but how do we develop Americans to come in and work in those restaurants and do the things that we need to do? There's been a lot of that going on. So we've got some some intel that we're able to tap into. We're also able to find out where they're coming from, how they're coming, how they're moving in town, where they're going out of town. Exciting stuff. But part of the puzzle in Ocean City was only the hotel side. It was never the condominium side. So we based our entire marketing efforts on 11,000 hotel rooms. But there's 28,000 single short-term rental units in Ocean City. So to be able to figure all that out has been a monumental task. I can say we haven't done that yet, but we're in the process of learning more, and that's the beauty about what we do here day in and day out. So this is I'm just going to run through these very quickly so you understand. You'll see stakeholders, engagement, perception studies, strategic goals, and the more important thing on here was vision, mission, and value statements. It's one thing to bring the consumer to town, but it's another when you don't control how they're treated and their experience in town. So again, it's a 4-phase process for us. We will reach out, we will do focus groups. We hope to have a unified marketing identity. We'll develop a creative process. Our logo is not our brand. So what is our brand? And we need to provide the architecture to figure that out. And hopefully we'll start on that process right after the first of the year. And then lastly, just to give you an idea, this is kind of the train that's been going down the track in Ocean City. When I mentioned staffing, we don't have a public relations specialist. All the good things that we hear or want to shout, we haven't been able to do. And I'll give you a perfect perception of what I'm talking about. Folks didn't think that there were brand hotels in Ocean City. And those hotels that were considered off-brand weren't considered boutique, intimate, provide you the cozy Airbnb style that folks have looked for during the pandemic. So again, to change the messaging, engage them is going to be extremely important moving forward. So I just wanted to give you some quick tactical examples of what I was talking about. Social media, Gen Xers, etc. You'll see the millennial information in here, the baby boomers. This is the stuff that we're tackling. And here's some takeaways and insights that you can get. We're going to vie for market share. We need to inspire a fresh path forward. Simple. People are going to indulge in expensive vacations. So I had 15 seconds. That's it.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have a few minutes for questions. I had a question back here first.
Tom, I saw that Vacasia has bought the entire Coldwell Banker rental management book of business in Ocean City, and they're buying significantly more. And the big difference being they do 3- and 4-day rentals, not full week rentals. How do you think that will change the personality of Ocean City and the clientele and just the marketing opportunities?
Well, I think there's two things that I'd like to mention about that. I think that Ocean City has spent over $5 million a year promoting OC Ocean. And it basically drove people to OC Ocean. And if they wanted to book a hotel reservation, you couldn't even find out what the rates were or the availability. So one of the initiatives that the CVB is going to be taking forward here in January is actually looking at the condominium side and the hotel side to develop that opportunity to drive them in there. We know that first-time visitors spend more and could potentially stay more. My experience in Ocean City was back 25 years ago or 30 years ago, if you didn't have your condo reservation by January 1st or 31st, you weren't getting your week in Ocean City. So we hope to engage more of the real estate professionals to try to extend those weeks. We believe we can do that with a different market segment. Also, the KPIs in Ocean City, we want to expand the season, not just, 100 days of summer. We believe that our offerings are a year-round community. How do we go out and do that? And again, we can expose, the pandemic's exposed more of the condominium opportunity. People don't want to get crowded up. They like their 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, whatever it is. So hopefully I answered that as good as I could. But yeah, we do recognize the 3 and 4 days. We'd like to bake it 6 and 7. That's the goal.
We have another question.
This question is for Marshall. Marshall, how has your organization helped restaurants be more agile during COVID?
So we are an organization that strongly believes that anything that we put out in terms of information, suggestions, any type of data whatsoever, it has to be right. Not always first, but it's going to be right. And the reason being is in today's world, not just us as individuals, but restaurant owners or managers, if they have a problem, what's the first thing they do? They Google it. And who knows what the heck you're going to get, right? So we have always prided ourselves, and it really came out during COVID, that the information we were giving our restaurant members and the industry as a whole was right so that they could make good business decisions. It's very tough to be agile, as you say, and be able to change when you don't know what the playing field is. And we were going through days there for a while where you would get one answer at 10 a.m., but by 6 p.m. it was something different. Very difficult to work with. So we spend an inordinate amount of time fact-checking, talking to the right government officials when necessary, other associations when necessary. And I think the big lesson that we all should have here is that there's nothing, at least in our industry, when it comes to the association side, we're not in competition with anyone. We should be working with every group and communicating with one another on a regular basis so that we are giving businesses and people the right information. That's really the only way that you can kind of adapt quickly, is just to know what the level playing field is. So I'm very proud of the work we did in that regard.
Time for one more question. Let me move it over. Hold on. Let me get Mary. If it's a quick one, we'll try to squeeze another one in.
It's more of a, what I had to say is more of a comment. You don't necessarily have to answer it, but I would like for you to think about it. And you mentioned create a control of how consumers are treated. That at this particular point you don't have that, and that you're going to work on that. You also mentioned about diversity with different ages of people. I would like for you to look at with the various tourism and whatever else. Look at how diversity is treated in reference to consumers and their cultures. That's a concern that we have in about equality of treatment.
So one thing that restaurants know that a lot of people don't realize is that we are very dependent on tourism. Not just necessarily destination locations like Ocean City, but if people go to Baltimore's Inner Harbor, Annapolis, just any location. So when we look at all of the different age groups and demographics that we're talking about, we know as restaurants that younger people are much more adventurous in their desire for food offerings. So it is important to our association to bring more ethnic and diverse restaurants into the state of Maryland and to help them grow so that we are addressing not only the younger crowd, but us old folks too. We like mix it up sometimes, but my parents maybe not so much, but that's okay. But so we always want to work closely with tourism and especially destination locations because we want to be part of making that experience.
Yeah, as far as Ocean City's tourism is concerned, we hear you loud and clear. I think that diversity and messaging is extremely important. And I can assure you that will be addressed at every level of how we plan and promote Ocean City as a destination. In fact, the town is hiring a diversity officer to make sure that we comply and do the things that we need to do. So we're excited about that. And, again, we treat people as people. That's what's important. And again, I use this little phrase that I've heard through working with Golf Magazine and FedEx. It was people, service equals profit. And then profit governmentally could mean, more people in the restaurants, higher ADR in the hotels, lower taxes. So people in that equation, we want to be everything to everyone. So I will tell you that as long as I'm the Director of Tourism and Business Development, I can assure you that diversity will be on the top of the list.
How about a round of applause for Marshall Weston and Tom Perlazzo? Thank you, gentlemen.